It is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Hello and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I'm Mr. Warren Hayes, and we are going to be talking about the December 11 edition of AEW Dynamite that had a bunch of stuff happen in the show that I thought overall was pretty solid. You know, I wouldn't go around calling it great or anything, but good, solid, entertaining. Again, you know, the nonsense has been reduced to minimal amounts. God bless the Continental Classic for forcing creative to go that way. That's a plus. That will always be a plus. And it was a plus in as such that we got some very good matches. Lots of wrestling again this week. You know, I will never complain about that. Lots of wrestling this week. And just, you know, minimal bullshit, which is always what you like to see when you watch pro wrestling at the very least. We were in Kansas City. When I say we, I mean they were in Kansas City, Missouri at the T-Mobile Center. Their debut at the venue, 3,854 tickets as per reported by WrestleTix, who did say that was this is the final count, essentially. So the entire wrap up didn't exactly crack 4,000. I thought they had a pretty good chance to do so, but you know, one of their better showings in recent memory for TV tapings. I find it interesting that, as you know, if you listen to this podcast, you know, we have observed that TV tapings struggle to get people into the building, whereas AEW has a lot easier time getting people into the buildings for the pay-per-views. That generally is not a struggle. It goes very well. I'm sure they'd love to pack in the arenas a lot more, but the pay-per-views do good business. So, you know, sometimes it begs to wonder, what is the formula of the pay-per-views that make people, that make the ticket buying audience feel secure in going out to purchase a ticket for the show as opposed to the weekly? Wouldn't it behoove AEW to look at the reasons why the pay-per-views are successful and maybe try to transplant a little bit into the regular TV? Now, I'm not saying suddenly turn your weekly TV into weekly pay-per-views. That's not what I'm saying. Don't take it on the, you know, at face value. But it's interesting to consider, like, whatever works for the pay-per-views, maybe there's a little bit of that can be sprinkled on the TV shows to make the ticket buying public feel more reassured in that regard. And this is not going to be a podcast today that we sit down and break down all of the things that AEW should do to try and rebuild confidence with its audience. But I think looking inward and wondering, you know, having a cold, hard look as to why the pay-per-views are successful as far as in arena attendance go, as opposed to the weekly tapings. Well, I think these are good. I think these are good things to think about. Let's put it that way. Continental Classic. Let's do ourselves a little breakdown, a little update. Last night, because of course I record this on the Thursday as opposed to doing this immediately after on a Wednesday. So I'm recording this on the Thursday. So I'm referring to last night. Today's the 12th. We're talking about the 11th, just in case you're new here. So as I was saying, last night, we only had Gold League action on Dynamite. We had Will Ospreay defeat Claudio Castagnoli and Ricochet get one over Brody King. So as it stands right now, as I'm sure you all saw with the standings last night, there is a three-way tie at the top where Will Ospreay, Claudio Castagnoli, and Ricochet are all tied for 6 points. However, Claudio and Ricochet both have a loss, and they have 3 matches into this. Will Ospreay only has 2 matches so far, so he is sitting pretty at the top with no losses. But he also has one match less, whereas Claudio and Ricochet both have registered an L. As for the rest of the field, Darby Allin then comes in next with 3 points with 1 win, 1 loss. Of course, he also only has 2 matches. Brody King is at 3 points with 1 win, 2 losses. And Commander wraps up the bottom with 3 points. Now, as you know, last week we did say that, not last week, earlier this week on one of the streams when we were breaking down the Continental Classic, I went ahead and soft eliminated Commander from the tournament. What do you mean by soft eliminated? Well, because mathematically there are still paths for Commander to make it to the end, but they get so wackadoo after a while that you're like, okay, well, I'm thinking too hard. And since I'm thinking too hard, AEW is not going to do this scenario. They're going to want to keep it as simple as possible. So, even though there are paths in which Commander could potentially make it to the semis, I don't think it's realistic. That's why I sort of soft eliminated him. So to me, he was the soft elimination of the tournament. He will, in this position here, where we have 3 people at 6 points moving forward. Commander absolutely, if he even wants to stay in the conversation, absolutely has to win a match. If he wants to say stuff, if he wants to remain in the soft elimination bracket, because if he loses his next match, he's done. Like, he's officially done. It's getting dicey for the Beast Mortos over on the Blue League as well. He's got a big match coming up this week, which will probably spell disaster for him, but we'll talk about those in a second. So, he might be on the way out as well, but he only has 2 matches under his belt. He still has 3 to go. So, we've got time to talk about this. Whereas Commander has 2 matches left. So, like I said, it's really do or die for him. You've got guys with 2 matches left, like Claudio and Ricochet, who already have 6 points and who possibly could win an extra match, right? With 3 guys up at 6 points, it's very, very unlikely that Commander is going to make it, because the maximum amount of points he can make at this point is 6. But again, with losses and draws and stuff, there is potential. There is maybe a possibility, if Ricochet and Claudio decide that they're flubbing the rest of their tournament, they lose the next 2, maybe. Look, again, I don't want to get into it too deep because there's really no point. But like I said, they're probably not going to go down that route. I think we know which route we're going down, and it's starting to become clearer with the matches that are left, at least in the Gold League. Will Ospreay has 3 matches left, so he obviously is going to be an integral part of the drama leading up to the end of the Continental Classic. I believe, let me pull up my stuff here just to make sure I'm not saying complete nonsense. Yeah, see, he's not booked, he being Ospreay, he's not booked in the Continental Classic until next week. Which is his match with Darby Allin, which is going to be a big match. So just the fact that he's been booked kind of week to week without any crunches where some guys worked a couple of times in the week, I think that this means that he's going to be an integral part of like I said, the big drama leading to the finish of Gold League. Ospreay has Darby Allin left, as we mentioned, but also Brody King and Ricochet. And there is, if you ask me, I would say that Ospreay and Ricochet is going to be at one of the Hammerstein shows, this in a couple of weeks, in 2 weeks actually, because because of the nature of the match itself. And I think it's going to have impacts on the placement of both guys. Like, it's either going to mean it's probably going to spell disaster for one of these two guys in regards to moving forward at World's End. And conventional logic would say that it's going to be Will Ospreay that's going to go forward, which I believe would make a lot of sense. Brody King is in here too, and he could play spoiler. Brody has Castagnoli left, and has wait, who does he have left? He has Ospreay, excuse me. He already fought Castagnoli. What am I talking about? He has Ospreay and Ricochet and Commander left. And I could absolutely see Brody King pulling an upset win over Will Ospreay, which would keep him from getting like a perfect record in this tournament. I can also see Darby Allin playing spoiler for Castagnoli in this situation as well. That's actually a story that would make a lot of sense because it ties into Darby's issues with the Death Riders. I believe that we will probably we'll be getting that very soon at the very least. But, you know, it wasn't announced. I mean, they still might announce things for Collision, right? But Darby versus Castagnoli was not announced for Collision this week. We had other matches announced for Collision. We had Okada versus Beast Mortos and Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe. Those were announced. But no Darby Allin to be found versus Castagnoli, which leads me to believe that he will also be an integral part to perhaps, I think he's going to play spoiler for a lot of guys. Just like I think Shelton Benjamin at this point is going to play spoiler as well. Darby has 3 matches left. Benjamin has 3 matches left as well. I think both guys are just going to be there to sort of dash some hopes, especially as we get closer to the end of block action. It's going to become very apparent, I believe, that it's going to become apparent that these guys are just going to, their role is going to be knocking out people who are very well positioned to move on to World's End. I wouldn't be surprised at all that Darby Allin on the last night of Gold action takes out Claudio Castagnoli from the equation. I wouldn't even be surprised at all that that on the last night of in-ring action for Gold League, we have Darby Allin versus Claudio Castagnoli and Ricochet versus Ospreay. That's my official call. I think that's what makes the most sense with the way things are set up, especially. And, you know, I mark my words. I think at this stage, Will Ospreay will absolutely not lose against Darby Allin. And you know what? If there was ever a match that could go for a draw, I think it'd be this one. And I think it would be a blast if it did. Like, I wouldn't be surprised in the least. Will Ospreay pulling out all of his power moves and Darby Allin just being Darby Allin and kicking out of everything all the time, right? I think it'd be tremendous. And then it'd be up to Brody King to sort of spoil the broth a little bit and deliver Ospreay a true proper loss. The important thing, because let's not forget, I think there's 2 scenarios, right? There's my preferred scenario and the scenario that makes sense. And my preferred scenario would end with Okada and Ospreay being either or block winner and runner-up of their respective blocks, and then meet at the finals of the Continental Classic at World's End. I think that's the most compelling final you can get. And if you want your tournament to be the most prestigious tournament in the world, well, get some of the best goddamn wrestlers in the world to be in it, and guys who have fought before and who we know have great chemistry and who can work. So that would make the most sense. Otherwise, you could. That's the one that I would prefer. The one that I think makes the most sense is to revisit Ospreay versus Fletcher. Despite the fact that I think that Ospreay versus Fletcher is very compelling as a semifinal match. I'm not, yeah, and then you can run the rubber match at the Australia show. I think that's the most compelling scenario. But it would make a lot of sense for it to be Ospreay versus Fletcher. Would it be a little predictable? Yes. Would we get a good final? Yes. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I really think that Okada Ospreay would just be better and would also serve to wash away a little bit the last few months that Kazuchika Okada has had in the company, where people feel he's been a little underwhelming. I'm kind of on board with that. You know, maybe I'm a little more patient, but you know, I don't know. I think I don't think he's been poorly used. I think he hasn't been used super great. But if the idea is that the 2024 incarnation of the Elite has disbanded, well, then it's time for Okada to sort of shed the old skin and then come back as the Rainmaker, as the Okada we all once knew. But, you know, we're talking Gold League today because there's really not much to add in regards to Blue League. Again, I've covered it on a stream this week. It's even been clipped on YouTube if you want to check it out. And it was also in the MrWarrenHayes show this week. So look, it's been covered. I streamed it, I put it in the podcast, and there's a clip. So you can absolutely find that stuff somewhere. But the situation with Gold League is I think it's becoming very clear where they're heading for this. I wouldn't be surprised that the last night at the Hammerstein has Ospreay versus Ricochet and Claudio Castagnoli and Darby Allin, with Darby Allin spoiling Castagnoli's tournament, and then having Ospreay and Ricochet go at it one more time. I think that's what makes the most sense to me. Because right on top of that, Commander, let's see here. Commander and Brody King have not fought. They haven't had their match yet. See, I'm convinced this is where we're going. I'm convinced this is where we're going. The question then will be, will Commander get at least 3 points on the board? Right? That's the whole thing. But let's say we talk about the Continental Classic matches that happened themselves. Again, like, I thought these matches were tremendous. I thought we were subjected to a couple of great matches once again. Okay, well, look, let's start with Ospreay defeating Claudio Castagnoli, which was, look, I think it is the match we expected, but I thought it was going to go harder than that. And I think there was proof that it could go harder than that because of the finish. I love the finish to this match, where Claudio is just doing shit and working at a frenetic pace because he knows, like, I got to string things together. I can't wait around. So he's like, boom, move, boom, to get, you know, to try and get the pinfall, because he knows he can't just wait around anymore. It's now or never. You know, goes for the neutralizer, but Ospreay reverses it into a jackknife pin situation, and he gets kind of a sneaky surprise win on Claudio. So, like I said, thought the ending was tremendous. Thought Claudio looked good overall. Ospreay as well. Like, that's not the issue. But I kind of felt like this match could have gone harder. I think it could have gone better. You know, and I'm kind of complaining with my belly full. You know, but it's because I wouldn't be complaining as such if it weren't for the fact that these two guys are prime pro wrestlers. Like, prime pro wrestlers, top athletes. One guy is the best pro wrestler in the world right now, and the other is a complete beast and a savage and a guy who is absolutely tremendous in ring. So Ospreay, Castagnoli, I finally settled on 4 out of 5 because I thought it was really good, and I think the finish really, really put it over for me. And if they had worked more of the pace of the finish throughout this match, I think it would have been, oh God, it would have been so good. So, but the pace of the finish ultimately put it over for me. I was like, okay, all right, I'm into it. I thought it was really good. Crowd was into it. A good crowd there in Kansas City. Yeah, see, it's like it's hard to not I'm complaining while I had a really, really tremendous match on TV where I'm like, this is great stuff. This is such a great TV match. But then I'm like, it could have been a lot better, right? So it's like my fantasy land that's sort of taking over, where in fact, no one in the right mind complains about this match. I guess I'm not in my right mind, which, is fair. It's a fair critique on my part. Ricochet defeated Brody King, as we mentioned too. I like this match more. And I think it's kind of like one of my favorite matches of the tournament so far. I thought it was really, really, really good. Like they did the big man, little man thing. And, Brody completely embraced the role, right? And like he's just dominating Ricochet throughout. Like Ricochet's trying to do his stuff and it's not working out. He does dives and whatnot, but Brody's just too big and too tough. He's doing his cannonball stuff. He blocks. He's blocking all sorts of moves by Ricochet, who does a sunset bomb, also off of Brody, but Brody, trying to hang on, pulls the top turnbuckle off, which would of course come into play later. And that's followed up by a shooting star press by Ricochet, covers, but King kicks out at one and while choke holding Ricochet, which was absolutely tremendous. And then he goes for a sleeper, which is always super effective for Brody King. And he chops Ricochet out of midair. Like Ricochet is just like getting completely destroyed, and his chest looks like mincemeat as well. But they're doing stuff on the top rope, and Ricochet basically on the corner where the turnbuckle is gone, and Ricochet kicks Brody King's legs out, and Brody then lands face first on the exposed turnbuckle. That sends him down, and then we get two spear guns, as Ricochet's calling them, for the win. And here's the interesting thing. This is what I found really interesting, is that the crowd was really into this match, but they were really into Brody's offense. Like they thought this was a lot of fun. So when Ricochet does the leg sweep thing off the top turnbuckle, and people turned on him, they started booing him. And I thought that was tremendous. That's a good little, I don't know if it was intentional or not. And I don't know if this is a sign that, Ricochet is turning heel. It could be just like a thing he did in the match where, he just took a shortcut to try and get the win. But that was it, but the audience kind of didn't like it. They were not into it. They wanted Brody King to win. So that's interesting. Got the win. I gave this 4.5 out of 5. I think this is one of my favorite matches of the tournament. I had a blast watching this, and Brody's so good. Brody King, like, I really don't want to go down this slope. Okay. And I know it's a slope. It's not one that you can easily climb back on once you get on this slope. But this is a company that keeps saying, we got to build new stars. We got to build stars. And they have stars already, and they have people that they brought in this year as superstars and are paying them superstar money. And you can argue, on different levels of what kind of returns they're getting on them. And we got to build new stars and whatnot. And then you have Brody King, like, just right there. And they're trying to get a bunch of people over. They're doing the private party. They're doing, Jack Perry. They're doing their best to try and get people over. And then you have Brody King, who is a guy that he's not getting pushed. This is not a guy who is not in the midst of a push or has ever been in the midst of a push, really. But whenever this guy comes out and wrestles, every single time, the crowd gets excited for his matches. The AEW fans love him. He's a great worker. He's a tremendous big man. He's got a hell of a look. I don't know why Brody King is not a guy that is vying for the TNT title or the international title. Like, this guy has to get out of this tag team situation. He should not touch the Kings of the Black Throne for a while. And Tony should just give him the push because the fans are basically asking for it. They're basically there reacting to everything Brody King does because he does it so fucking well. And he's right there. You know, he's kind of like Willow Nightingale used to be. Do you remember when Willow Nightingale started appearing more and more on AEW, right? Like, you know, in the lead up to her getting the graphic, right? Where she had her contract before that, right? But you remember she'd come in and she'd lose practically all the time. And she was never really pushed or whatnot. But people just loved Willow. And Willow worked hard. You know, she was a great worker, had this incredible crowd connection. People were into her, still are. But the point is like back then. So next thing you know, well, Tony's like, well, I got to push her. Yeah, I mean, Britt is, you know, the centerpiece of my women's division. And geez Louise, you know, what are we going to do, you know? I got Tony Storm. I've got, you know. And Willow sort of came out of nowhere and sort of carved her niche, like made her spot. I don't think it was really given to her. I think she just became undeniable. I think they were having discussions backstage, you know, the producers and whatnot, and telling Tony, every time this girl comes out, people go nuts for her. And I think, yeah, if there's any real vision to what they're doing backstage, to what they're doing in creatively, then the same people backstage have to be looking at Brody King and going, Tony, this Brody King guy, he's tremendous. People want more of him. We have to carve out a piece of time for him. Who cares about, like, hang on, I'm going to be careful, because there are people who care. Let me put it this way. Right now, all this time that we're wasting on the Kyle O'Reilly drama is time we're taking away from a Brody King push. All the time that we're wasting on Private Party, who are back to being just guys now, right? Could be used for a Brody King push, which, unlike Private Party, would actually work out. I think it's because the people already accept him as a guy. And he already has a crowd connection and so on and so forth. Like, what does this guy have to do? What does Brody King have to do to get any kind of singles push? As I truly believe the fans demand it. Maybe, are they waiting for Julia Hart to pop back probably this Saturday? And, you know, because Julia and Brody King, they're a good duo. They were a good duo. You know, he'd come out, he'd corner her. Right? She'd corner him, of course, the House of Black, but he'd corner her. And he did the narration on one of the videos that they did for her on her comeback, right? And maybe that'll be a little pairing. They'll come back with that. And maybe, I couldn't tell you. But the more we wait off of Brody King, and the more we wait with Brody King, the more the ship is going to pass. And I think we need to strike while it's hot. Look, it's not as if everything on this card is hot from top to bottom and selling tickets, right? Might as well try some stuff. Might as well try some things out. Might as well just give it the old college try. You could do worse than pushing Brody King. You could do a lot fucking worse. Anyway, great match. I thought it was a lot of fun. And Ricochet got his 3 points there. So that's where we're at with the Continental Classic. Let's move on to the big show. Not the world, not that big show. The big show, the big Dynamite show. Starts off with the tag team of John Moxley and Pac from the Death Riders defeating Jay White and Orange Cassidy via disqualification. You see, I think in the first 3 years of this company, you could count on one hand that had lost 2 of its fingers during the war, the number of times that a match in AEW ended by a disqualification. Now, I'd have to go back, pull up the old cage match and take a look good and proper. But this year is unquestionably, there has been more DQ finishes in AEW this year than there has been in the entire history leading up to now. I think 2024 has been the year that there have been the most DQ finishes in the history of the company, which was a delight and something that I think the company took pride in. Now, well, whatever. I thought this was good. I thought it was a good match. Really good back and forth to begin with. I thought this was good. I thought this was a good match. Brawling, starting off with the brawl. Everyone's on the floor. Babyface is in control until Jon Moxley suplexes Orange Cassidy onto commentary table. He like a back suplex. And then we have a really good heat segment that leads to an Orange Cassidy hot tag. Really good exchange. Lots of fire here. Match comes to an end when Hangman runs in to attack Jon Moxley, which immediately causes the DQ. During this match, Christian Cage is up in a booth somewhere. At a booth, a suite. And he's watching from his suite. And then eventually at some point he just dismisses the patriarchy, the Kip Sabian and Nick Wayne and Mama Wayne. He tells them all to bugger off. So we never found out what he wanted them to do. I didn't know if it was just like collectively everyone go buy us some snacks, go to the concessions, get us some popcorn, get us some chicken fingers, get us some nachos. You know, maybe Christian Cage wanted a lot of stuff, so it required. Maybe it was a 3-person job. We don't know because they never came back. Not until later, but I thought they were interfering in this match, but they didn't. What did they go do? We don't know. Ultimately, I guess it doesn't matter, but it also does matter. Maybe we'll find out in a week or two. You know, there's sometimes AEW does that. Well, they'll plant a seed and they'll revisit that kind of thing. But nonetheless, Hangman causes the loss, and then the baby faces plus Hangman Page. I don't know if he's a baby face yet. Like, we're definitely heading back down that track, I think, right? We're probably going back down that path, or at least, you know, we're tweening in the meantime. But Hangman attacks Orange Cassidy, and Jay White attacks Hangman Adam Page, and then they all start landing, you know, big finishing moves on each other. You know, Orange Punch on Hangman, and then the Blade Runner on Orange Cassidy. And then while they were all fighting, you know, the Death Riders were outside of the ring. And then once they're done beating on each other, well, the Death Riders come back and they just get a couple of licks in. Why wouldn't they? Where is, I feel the killer menace of the Death Riders is sort of, it's not quite there as much anymore. Like, I'm not saying that they necessarily 100% had to win here, but I get the idea of them getting back into the ring to get some licks in as a way to get some heat, but they just don't feel as threatening. They don't feel as threatening. And, you know, at this point, like, if I'm Jon Moxley and he's got, you know, these 3 guys coming after his title, it's like, all right, fight amongst yourselves. You know, it's like, go do nonsense. But you know, he does cut a promo a little later on. You know, basically saying that, you know, everyone's egos are running too high. And, you know, if you guys want to fight me, well, you're going to fight me in a 4-way at the pay-per-view at World's End. And it's going to be a 4-way at the pay-per-view at World's End. I don't know why I felt I had to repeat it. So he's basically opening up the door for this. And I'm like, okay, well... But, you know, something needs to happen to the Death Riders. And I think, you know, oddly enough, I think adding a new member would be really interesting, right? I know they can't injure out all the heroes. Like that would just be detrimental, you know? But I think we're on a bit of a fine line. We're on a bit of a fine line where Mox is about to not come across as a threatening monster anymore. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe they just wanted him to. It doesn't make sense though. Like maybe they do want him to come across not as strong and then sort of expose him as just being like this, you know, cult leader type vibe, you know, where he's like, I'll let my minions do the work, whatever. But it doesn't quite work because that's not how everything was started. It was started with Jon Moxley basically killing Bryan Danielson. Like essentially just like murder, straight up murder, right? Just murdering. So yeah, you know, we've got, we'll find something, you know, to do. We'll have something to do with them. But yeah, you know, I'm absolutely not out on the story or the angle, but I think it could be a little stiffer. Let's put it that way. Anyway, but the match was pretty good for what it's worth. I understand the finish, you know, why they did it. It's all part of the angle. They had to set up the match. And now the match is set up, which we had been talking about for weeks upon weeks at this point. This has been expected for weeks on end, except I think with maybe the only little caveat that a lot of us were expecting Christian Cage as opposed to Orange Cassidy, but this is where we are now. We had another Bandito segment where Bandito is still in the old town, the old Western frontier, and he's coming into town and a posse is there to challenge him and tell him to get the hell out of town. So what does Bandito do? Well, Bandito do what Bandito does, and that is wrestling moves. So he took out the posse by doing moves. And the 21 plex, right? Isn't that what it's called? He did the 21 plex on a guy. You know, I mean, they're fine. It doesn't bother me. It's a nice little diversion. And if it gets people excited for Bandito, let me tell you, I'm all for it. Then we had the Death Riders, not the Death Riders, but the Jon Moxley promo that we just spoke about, where he establishes the four-way match for World's End. Then we get Christian Cage in his suite, and he's cutting a promo, and he's basically saying that he's going to be ready. He's going to be ready to do his cash-in gimmick at World's End. And just as he's done talking, Hook breaks through the door. Christian Cage said, "And I got one last thing to say to you." And he goes, "Fuh," and then he turns to see Hook, who is in the window frame of the door, which was absolutely a real door that they use on that that they absolutely use on that suite, right? It's 100% a real door with real glass, just so you know. Hook standing there, you know, stalking him, and Christian Cage is about to he's about to say, "Go fuck yourself." That's what Christian Cage is about to tell Jon Moxley. He says, "Go fuck," and he goes fuck because he's turning around to see Hook, and he's shocked to see him. Hook breaks through the glass with his cast and then attacks Christian Cage, and they have a fun little tussle. Christian Cage is completely outmanned. I think it's pretty fun, and he tries to throw Hook tries to throw Christian Cage off the balcony, which I thought was pretty fun. Then Kip Sabian and Nick Wayne arrive back from their errand, wherever the hell they went. And then Hook fights him off, and then he runs away. But that's the thing. Like, if at the very least we understood why Christian Cage sent sent everyone off, just make it make a little sense. Just a little bit of sense. Because now it was clear they sent him off because they wanted Hook to get a beat down without the patriarchy around it. It's like, okay, very contrived. Then we had Will Ospreay defeating Claudio Castagnoli in the Continental Classic Gold League match. I can speak, I promise. We already talked about the match, so let's move on. Ricochet after the match, we didn't mention this. After the match, Claudio attacks Will Ospreay because he didn't like losing. He didn't try to lose. He didn't try an underhand tactic to win here. That would be left up to Ricochet and Brody King, right? So on one hand, I applaud AEW showing some restraint. But on the second hand, I'm like, why are we having so many, low blows and, rule stretching, rule bending to get to the finishes? Like, this is supposed to be the straight up wrestling tournament, and yet we still have, it's still sprinkled with nonsense, I will appreciate the show of restraint here. Claudio and Ospreay ended clean as a sheet. I don't know why you couldn't have done it with Ricochet and Brody King. So Claudio is attacking Ospreay, and Darby Allin runs in to save Ospreay from more damage. Rene Paquette is interviewing Ricochet backstage. He says he came back to AEW because of competition. And he holds all the cards tonight, and he's holding MVP's business card. So he's still hanging on to that. We're still teasing that, which is why I'm wondering if this isn't the start of a heel turn or not because of how he won the match. I still think they should do Anthony Bowens, but we'll see what happens. MJF arrives at the building. We cut to commercial. When we come back, we've got Renee interviewing Matt Cardona, who says it's great to be back in AEW and he belongs here. Tony puts over the fact that he's been reinventing himself for 5 years and, challenges, says he's ready to fight Chris Jericho, and he challenges Brian Keith to a match on a Rampage. All right. Then Adam Cole makes his way out for his match with Kyle O'Reilly, but Renee catches up with Kyle backstage before anything else happens. And Renee just like, Kyle, a few words. What do you have to, what's going on, And before Kyle can actually answer anything, the Kingdom show up and they're like, brother, we're all family. What are you doing? And then Kyle's like, well, you should have thought of that before you send one of our brothers to get injured. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this fucking story, man. Like, it's not good. Again, like, this is kind of like the low point of the show. Adam Cole defeating Kyle O'Reilly. And this is like one of the preeminent angles right now, but it's like so tedious, So it's the final of the Dynamite Dozen, right? That happened last week. And whoever wins here gets to fight for the Dynamite Diamond Ring at World's End, which is still held by MJF. And yeah, I mean, it's a match. I didn't think it was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's, a lot was said during this match about, past Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly matches. And in reality, you're like, and when you think about it, like, well, I guess they did have a few really good ones, especially the more recent memory ones. They've all been forgettable. Like, there's nothing really to glean out of all of this. It was a match, and Kyle was trying to tie him up into knots and use some submissions, and then at some point MJF shows up to use the Dynamite Diamond Ring on Adam Cole, but Cole deflects or punches him. I think he punches him, right? And that leads us to the finish where Kyle O'Reilly tries to go for a pin, but instead Cole rolls him up for the victory. So we are officially getting Adam Cole versus MJF at World's End. And, I don't know who's excited about this. I don't know who's still into this. I remember when the Brochacho stuff started, people backstage were talking about how this was going to be their bloodline. Well, it's sure lasting as fucking long and is already as long in the tooth as the bloodline stuff is. FTR backstage, putting over the January 1st Asheville show, Dynamite in Asheville, putting over their South Carolina roots and Hurricane Helen, was it? Was it Helen or Helena? Helen? I don't remember. And they're going to put on a hell of a show when they come back, and also put out over the fact that it's going to be the start of the Max TBS simulcast. Simulcast, folks. Simulcast. Not rebroadcast, simulcast. Chris Jericho gets his New York Minute where he, talks about stuff, and then Brian Keith has a few choice words for Matt Cardona. All right, let's move on. Just very forgettable. There's nothing to this. We get a recap of last weekend's Continental Classic action, which, if you haven't heard by now, is really the best stretch of C2 action we've had to date. The Rampage leading into the Collision, just tremendous work up and down. Tony Schiavone is having a sit-down interview with Darby Allin, who punches himself in the face until he bleeds. And yeah, doesn't like John Moxley, says they're chipping away at what makes AEW special, etc., etc. Then we had Ricochet versus Brody King. We've already talked about the match. Private Party are backstage cutting a promo. They have some drinks set up. I thought they were done doing we're bar hoppers gimmick, or whatever it is. Clubbers. More like clubbers, but rather than bar hoppers. They're probably clubbers. I thought they were done. I thought they were a serious tag team now, but they're not. They're not. They're back ogling at Layla Gray when she comes in. It's like, Cassidy says the same joke over and over again. Marion, thank you, Santa. He says it like 3 times to make sure we understood it. Yes, we heard you the first time. Thank you, Santa. When Layla Gray arrives, thank you, Santa. And then he says it like twice after. Thank you, Santa. And then she goes, thank you, Santa. Like, fuck off. Like, stop. We got it. This is all setting up a tag team title defense against, either of the Top Flight or the Top Flight Splinter Cell. It's either or. It's one of the, I don't know, like, okay, it's fine. They're setting up a number 1 contenders match on Collision for this. There's tension, folks. There's tension. They put over the All in Texas ticket selling event, the press event for selling tickets. That happened this Monday. So good. I mean, they have to do this. They have to do this over and over and over again. They have to keep pushing on this show that this is on every show, that this is the greatest thing that they'll ever see. And they need to cut time off of the, whatever. I was going to say the Adam Cole MJF stuff, but they need to make time to promote this as the big deal it is, right? I don't even think WrestleTix at this point has released the map yet. Apparently, it looks like it's a very complicated map to get an estimation off of. Tony Khan was saying that the gate is already 1.5 million sold, which is good. What does this translate to? Like, we want to know how big of a show this is going to be. I mean, and this is what he should be doing. He should be touting successes. He should be everywhere, clamoring at the top of his lungs. There's a lot of people coming. You just got to be careful when it comes to touting your gate, because otherwise you run the risk of, Triple H coming out to tell a crowd, hey, you guys just bought so many tickets at an outrageous price that now you are the largest arena gate we've ever done in the history of WWE. And then people go, yay. And you're like, why are you cheering about paying so much money? That's why I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you this, because we know how Tony is. We've seen it before. If the ticket sales were really good, let's say they had sold 20,000 tickets in the first day, let's say, he would be crowing about it. He would be telling us, but he's not. He's talking about gate instead. These are reasons. There are reasons for this. Good. Like I said, push your successes, but probably the ticket sales aren't all that great yet. Gotta keep pushing. Then we have Renee Paquette who was moderating a face-to-face meeting between Anna Jay and Mercedes Moné. Moné basically puts her over, says, oh, you're gutsy. You went to Japan. I went to Japan too. It's like, it's good stuff. And again, this is another promo that doesn't feel overly scripted for Mercedes. Again, she sounds very natural. She sounds like someone talking, which is, the vibe in AEW. I think her promos recently have been pretty good. I'm not saying, they're not tearing the house down, but they're better than a lot of stuff she had been doing previous. And Anna Jay, responds, saying she's an underdog. She's coming in this match as the underdog, which is like most of my career and so on and so forth. Anna's not necessarily the greatest talker either. Let's just, right? Like, she's competent. She doesn't trip over her words. She's not, she's not talking about doing lucha things. She's competent, but in a promotion that has so many great talkers and within which, for a while, it was absolutely a way that AEW distinguished itself from WWE. The quality of the promos, it's still sort of striking, I guess, on a certain level. So they're basically hyping up the match for next week, if I'm not mistaken. And then they do a nice little video package to hype up Mariah May versus Mina Shirakawa, who main evented, which is good. And I think it did a good job at adding some drama to the match while establishing like the history between these two, which led to the main event, which I thought was pretty good. I would even go as far as to say, this is how far I'm ready to go on this match. Are you ready to hear how far I'm ready to go on this match? Get ready. Here we go. I think this is Mariah May's best AEW match since becoming champion. Hot take, Warren. It's not really a hot take. It's kind of, because I think anyone with a pair of eyeballs could see that. Since winning the title, I don't think she's had this good a match. This was very, 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 very good. They're striking, it's physical. They're going after each other. Shirakawa does a slop drop and a draping DDT. Mariah May does the Mayday, but Shirakawa kicks out. There's a little botch on a crucifix bomb. No big deal, though, Mina does a top rope sling blade. She got a lot of offense here. Good little showcase match. Mariah May kicks out of her driver thing. I don't remember. I don't know what it's called. I don't quite know. But Mariah May does get the win by using the Storm Zero again. I thought this was well worked. I thought it was a good TV defense. It was exciting. It was well done. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I thought this was top line work. Might even go 3. You could argue 3 3/4 if you wanted to me. I'd probably boost it up a 1/4 star. I really liked that. I thought it was good. Good main event. And then at the end, of course, Toni Storm reappears in her black and red get up, her typical Toni Storm gear, right? And she comes out and people are excited and they're thrilled and they're jumping up and down and she's not in timeless gear. She's not timeless Toni Storm, but everyone's like, oh, we're fine. She's back. She's going to be this now. Look, don't count your chickens before they hatched. Peeps. See what I did there? Chicks, they do beep, beep, beep. When they hatch, you beep, 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 beep. It's a peep. Peeps. Just like the little marshmallow peeps that come out during Easter, right? The peeps. They're all they're little chicks. So see, I made them. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Peeps, you get it? I'm on another level. I just want to make sure you get it because I know I'm on another level. I know I'm on a completely other level. I just want to make sure. I want to raise you to my level. So if you don't understand, don't worry about it. I'll walk you through it. I'll help you raise to my level. I'll bring you with me. I want to take you with me. Come up here. Anywho, don't count your chickens before they hatched because her her body language, Toni Storm's body language, didn't necessarily convince me that we are completely done with the timeless gimmick. Her expression, her face, her eyes were still kind of crazy. I think the mental break is still there. And let me tell you, Tony Khan, he loves the timeless gimmick. He loves it. He loves it to bits. I'm not sure he's ready to part ways with it just yet. We're not quite ready yet. Let's just put it that way. But big reaction, got the crowd excited. The crowd was very good throughout the night nonetheless. It was a good crowd. I think I mentioned this, but it was a good crowd. Bears to be mentioned again. And it got the internet buzzing to have Toni Storm back. Where has she been? Well, she's been in Stardom. She's been in CMLL. She's been around. You just have to pay attention a little bit. She's been doing shit. That's fine. But they're obviously kicking off the angle. One thing that we didn't mention, though, that I didn't mention, was that Thunder Rosa was ringside, holding signs and, it's like attending the match because she kind of wants a shot. She's been angling to get a shot at the world title. Now Toni Storm's back, so this kind of throws a wrench in her plans. What's going to be the next move here? I think this might have been set up I think this might be a very clever way to not immediately jump into Toni Storm versus Mariah May. Maybe we'll have a little Thunder Rosa excursion on the side, which will have been really well set up because Thunder has been back on TV for the past couple of weeks. She's been racking up a few wins. She's been cutting promos about wanting a shot at the world title. If this is the path that they went down, and we get Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa to lead us to the Mariah May match, goddamn, I mean, this is really good booking. Like, that's smart, well put together booking. You can't complain about that. And I love Thunder Rosa's new look, the straight hair, the new type of face paint. I think we're rekindling an aura here. God, I really have to stop using aura. I hate using the word aura now. Now I think everyone uses it, and I think it's kind of an empty term now. It's like everyone uses it for whatever reason, and it doesn't have, everyone just goes aura, but no, stop. It's cringe. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I used it myself. I apologize. This is a no aura podcast in more ways than one. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up for today. Thank you very much for being here, for listening to this week's review. If you liked it, leave a like here on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. And I will be back. If you're listening to this on the Thursday, I will be streaming tonight on Thursday over on YouTube. So make sure you come and say hello. The Thursday streams are usually a little on the goofy side, so why not? Come say hello. Otherwise, I will be back with the Mr. Warren Hayes Show next week amidst more streaming and more stuff. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.